All right. I'm doing a quick reading out of the Josephus, and I want to speak on Moses' birth. All right, the blessing that was given to um, Amram. All right. So in this particular chapter, it says I'm in chapter 9. So um, I think it's book 2, um, chapter 9. All right, paragraph 1. I'm also going to be in book 1, chapter 10, verse 3. All right. Uh, so it says, and God commanded his virtue and said, you shall not, however, lose the rewards you have deserved to receive by such your glorious actions. He answered, and what advantage will it be to me to have such rewards when I have none to enjoy them after me? This is Abram speaking. For he was hitherto childless, and the Most High promised that he should have a son, and that his posterity, his children, should be very numerous, insomuch that their number should be like the stars. When he heard that, he offered a sacrifice to the Most High, as he commanded him. The manner of the sacrifice was this: he took an heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram in the same manner of 3 years old, and a turtle dove and a pigeon. I'm going to read the note. The note says, it is worth noting here, understanding that the Most High required no other sacrifice nor other gift under the law of Moses than what were taken from these 5 kinds of animals, which he here required of Abraham, the Most High. And it says also, nor did the Jews, the Israelites, feed upon any other domestic animals than the 3 here named. All right. And you would go to book 4, chapter 5, verse 3 to read that also. So I'm going to go back. So the heifer, the she-goat, and a ram, and turtle doves, and a pigeon. All right. And it says, and as he was enjoined, he divided the 3 former, but the birds he did not divide. After which, before he built his altar, where the birds of prey flew about, as desirous of blood, a divine voice came to him, declaring that their neighbors would be grievous to his children when his prosperity, when they should be in Egypt in bondage for 400 years. All right. And it has a note there. As to this affliction of Abraham's posterity or children for 40 years. So, I'll read again. Before he built his altar, where the birds of prey were flying about, as desirous of blood, a divine voice came to him, announcing that their neighbors would be grievous to his children when they should be in Egypt, Mizraim, bondage, for 400 years. They're going to be in captivity for 400 years, during which time they should be afflicted. And the note says, as to this affliction of Abram's children for 40 years. Alright? But afterward should overcome their enemies. After they're afflicted, they're going to overcome their enemies and should conquer the Canaanites in war. They were Hamites, and possess themselves of their land, take their land, receive their land, and of their cities. Alright? And now I'm going to go over to Book 2, Chapter 9, Paragraph 1. Let me read this right quick. It says, now Abram dwelt near the oak called August. The place belongs to Canaan, not far from the city of Hebron. Alright. But being uneasy at his wife's barrenness, he asked God to grant that he might have a male issue, a male child. Alright. So now, I'm in the Antiquities of the Jews, the history of the Israelites, right? Chapter 9, concerning the affliction that befell the Hebrews in Egypt during 400 years, right? We read 40 years in the note. So let's read this note. It says, as to the affliction of Abram's posterity, children, for 40 years, see Antiquities 1, 10, and 3. We just read that. And as to what cities they built in Egypt under Pharaoh Sesostris and Pharaoh Sosostris, drowning in the Red Sea. It says, see the essay on the Old Testament, appended, page 132 to 62. Alright? We're not going to go there. You go there if you want. It says, now, it happened that the Egyptians, right, the Hamites, grew delicate and lazy, right, as to painstaking, and gave themselves up to other pleasures, and in particular to the love of gain. They love luxury, mammon. They love the love of gain. They also became very ill affected towards the Hebrews. They hated us. And as touched with envy at their posterity, they're envious of our children. For when they saw how the nation, how the people of the Israelites flourished, how we grew and were become eminent, already in plenty of wealth. We grew in plenty of wealth, income, which they had acquired by their virtue, their strength, and natural love of labor, of work. They thought their increase was to their own detriment, and having in length of time forgotten the benefits they had received from Joseph in Imhotep, They called Joseph Imhotep. Particularly the crown being now come into another family, so another king that didn't know Pharaoh. They became very abusive to the Israelites, the children of Hebrew, and they planned many ways of afflicting them. Alright? For they enjoined them to cut a great number of channels. They asked them to cut a great number of channels for the river, and to build walls for their cities, and ramparts that they might restrain the river, hold back the river, and hinder its waters from stagnating upon its running over its own banks. They set them also to build pyramids. They did what? They set them also to build pyramids. You don't see that nowhere else. And I'm going to read the notes, right? Of this building of the pyramids of Egypt by the Israelites, see Prosonius or Orge and Egyptic chapter 21. It is not impossible they might build one or more of the small ones, but the large ones seem much later, only if they be all built of stone. This does not so well agree with the Israelites' labors, which are said to have been in brick and not in stone, as Mr. Sandys observes in his Travels, page 127 to 128. All right? But I'm going to read what Josephus said, and it says, they set them also to build pyramids, and by all this wore them out, and forced them to learn all sorts of mechanical arts, and to accustom themselves to hard work, hard labor. And 400 years did they spend under these afflictions, for they strove one against the other, which should get the mastery, that will get the mastery, to be the master, or the leader. The Egyptians desiring to destroy the Israelites by these labors. They tried to destroy us by these works. And the Israelites desiring to hold out to the end under them, to endure them, to get through them. 2. While the affairs of the Hebrews were in this condition, a particular occasion offered itself to the Egyptians, which made them more solicitous for the extinction of our nation. One of those sacred scribes, one of those sacred scribes who are very sages in foretelling future events, truly told the king, which they told the Pharaoh, that about this time there would a child be born to the Israelites. And we know this child is Moses, drawn out. So we're going to read the note. The note says here, Josephus is clear. I'm sorry, let me go back. It says, Dr. Bernard informs us here that instead of this single priest or prophet of the Egyptians, without a name in Josephus, the Targum of Jonathan names the two famous antagonists of Moses, Jannes and Jambres. Nor is it at all unlikely that it might be one of these who foreboded so much misery to the Egyptians and so much happiness to the Israelites from the rearing of Moses. All right. So, one of those sacred scribes who are very sages, wise, and foretelling future events truly, told the king, told Pharaoh, that about this time there would a child be born to the Israelites, who, if he were reared, nourished, would bring the Egyptian dominion low. take down their government, and would rise the Israelites, lift up the Israelites, that he would excel all men in virtue and obtain a glory that would be remembered through all ages. Which thing was so feared by the king, by Pharaoh, that according to this man's opinion, he commanded that they should throw every male child, every boy, which was born to the Israelites, into the river, and destroy it, kill all the boys, baby boys. That besides this, the Egyptian midwives should watch the labors of the Hebrew women, the pregnancies of the Hebrew women. So I'm going to read the note here. It says, Josephus is clear that these midwives were Egyptians and not Israelites, as in other copies, which is very probable, it being not easily to be supposed that Pharaoh could trust the Israelite midwives to execute so barbarous a command against their own nation, against their own people. But now, the midwives and nurses and that and stuff like that, we have our own people aborting our children and all of that. So they finally got that working together, because they got our people killing and aborting our children. Pharaoh couldn't trust the Israelite midwives to execute so barbarous a command against their own people, and consult therefore and correct hence our ordinary copies, Exodus 1:15 to 22. And indeed, Josephus seems to have had much complete copies of the Pentateuch and other authentic records now lost about the birth and actions of Moses, than either our Hebrew and Samaritan or Greek Bibles give us, which enable him to be so large in particular about him. Alright, so we're going to continue. Alright, so Moses will be remembered through all ages, which thing was so feared by the king, that according to this man's opinion, alright, Janus or Jambres or whoever, right, he commanded that they should cast every male child which was born to the Israelite into the river and kill it. That besides this, the Egyptian midwives should watch the labors of the Hebrew women and observe what is born, what came out. It was only two genders back then, boy or girl. For those were the women who were enjoined, they were asked to do the office of midwives. They were the ones that were given the jobs to them. And by reason of their relation to the king, would not transgress his commands, them being Egyptians. He asked also that if any parent should disobey him and venture to save their male children alive, they and their families should be destroyed. I'm going to read the note. It says, of this grandfather of Sesostris, Ramses the Great, who killed the Israelite infants, babies, and of the inscription on his obelisk, containing, in my opinion, one of the oldest records of mankind. See Essay on the Old Testament in the appendix, page 139, 145, 147, 217 to 220. Alright? So, it says, they and their families should be destroyed. Alright? If you save the children alive. This was a severe affliction, indeed, to those that suffered it, that went through it. Not only as they were deprived of their sons, and while they were the parents themselves, they were asked to be subservient to the destruction of their own children, but as it was to be supposed to tend to the extirpation of their nation, while upon the destruction of their children and their own gradual dissolution, the calamity, the disaster would become very hard and inconsolable to them. And this was the ill state they were in. This was the ill state or position they were in. But no one can be too hard for the purpose, the plan, the will of the Most High, the will of the Most High, Elohim. Though he contrived, planned 10,000 subtle devices, all right, um, wicked plans for that end, for that to become, all right. So nothing can stop the will of God, though he or the devil or the Pharaoh contrive 10,000 um, subtle uh, devices, plans, or inventions, technologies for that end, for that purpose. For this child, whom the sacred scribe foretold, was brought up and concealed from the observers. All right, he was hid from the observers. Observers can be watchers, appointed by the king, appointed by Satan. Okay, Pharaoh. All right, and he that foretold him, told him about this, did not mistake. He didn't make an error in the consequences of his preservation. All right, of his of Moses' preservation, his safety, um, which were brought to pass after the manner following. This is how it was brought to pass. This is how it happened. A man whose name was Amram, one of the nobler sort of the Hebrews, all right, the righteous, was afraid for his whole nation. Amram, right, Moses' father, was one of the nobler sort of the Hebrews, Israelites, and was afraid for his whole nation, his whole people, if it should fail by the want, the need of young men to be brought up, to be grown up here, currently, and after in the future, and was very uneasy. He was very uneasy at it. His wife being then with child, his wife was pregnant, and he knew not what to do. Hereupon he betook himself to pray to the Most High. So Amram, Moses' father, prayed to the Most High, the highest, and asked him to have love, compassion on those men who had no wise sinned, it says transgressed, broke the laws, the commandments of his worship, and to afford them deliverance. He said, to give us deliverance from the miseries, Most High, they at that time was going through, endured, and to render abortive their enemies' hopes, their plans of the destruction of their nation, the destruction of the nation of the Hebrews, the Israelites. Accordingly, the Most High had mercy on him, and was moved by his supplication. He was moved by his prayer. He stood by him in his sleep, and exhorted him not to despair, not to be afraid of his future favorites. He said further that he did not forget their piety, their respect towards him. What was their respect towards him? Obeying the voice of the Most High, being obedient, keeping his laws, right? Worshiping him. He said, the Most High said, he did not forget their piety towards him, and would always reward them for it, for not transgressing, obeying his voice, keeping the law, as he had formerly granted his favor to their forefathers, and made them increase from a few, being very small, to so great a multitude, a crowd. he put him in mind that when Abraham was come alone out, he made him remember. He said he put him in mind to think that about when Abraham was come alone out of Mesopotamia into Canaan. He had been made happy. He was made what? Happy. Not only in other respects, but that when his wife was at first barren, Abraham's wife was first barren, empty, she was afterwards by him enabled, allowed to conceive seed, to have a child, and bear him. Uh-huh. So she was afterwards by, so first she was barren, empty, not sown, and she was afterwards by him enabled to conceive seed. Seed is what? Sperma. And bear him sons. Right? You talk about Sarah, right? That he left to Ishmael and to his children the country of Arabia, as also to his sons by Keturah and Troglodytis, and to Isaac Canaan. By my assistance, my help, said he, the Most High, he did great exploits in war. He had great victories in war, which, unless you be yourselves impious, you must still remember, all right, that you cannot forget his victories. As for Jacob, as for Israel, he became well known to strangers also, foreigners, aliens, by the greatness of that prosperity, all right, the greatness of that the children in which he lived, or the success in which he lived, and left to his sons who came into Egypt, Mizraim, with no more than 70 souls, while you are now become above 600,000. Know therefore that I shall provide for you all in common, all the same, what is for your good, and particularly for yourself, thyself, what shall make you famous, Amram, for that child, out of dread, of whose nativity, beginning, the Egyptians have doomed the Israelite children to destruction, and will be this child of thine. It's going to be this child of yours, which is Moses, and shall be concealed. He's going to be hidden from those who watch to destroy him. And when he is brought up in a surprising way, he shall deliver the Hebrew nation. He's going to deliver, he's going to spare, he's going to save the Hebrew nation, people, from the distress they are under from the Egyptians. His memory shall be famous while the world lasts, while the world continues, endures. And this not only among the Hebrews, but still amongst foreigners also, or strangers. All which shall be the effect of my favor to you. To who? Amram. This is Moses' father. And to your posterity, your children. He shall also have such a brother, that he shall himself obtain my priesthood, and his children shall have it after him to the end of the world. The Levites. Alright? Aaron's children. Now, in paragraph 4, when the vision had informed him of these things, Amram awakened, he woke up and told it to Jochebed, who was his wife. And now the fear increased upon them on account of the prediction, because what the Most High told them. And Amram's dream, vision, for they were under concern. They were really concerned, not only for the child, Moshe, but on account of the great happiness that was to come to him also. However, the mother's labor, the mother's pain, work, travail, was such as afforded a confirmation. So her labor, her pregnancy, gave forth a confirmation to what was foretold by the Most High, Elohim. For it was not known to those that watched her. It was not known to those that watched her, the Egyptian midwives, because by the easiness of her pains, her labor, all right, and because the throes of her delivery did not fall upon her with violence. She didn't have a harsh pregnancy, birth, delivery. And now they nourished the child. They what? They nourished the child. They fed the child at home privately for 3 months. See? And you can have a child now and CPS be trying to take it, because you don't want to do certain things. And or you might have the child at home and you still got to get records and try to, you know, it would be nice if you have a child in Babylon that you can hide it, right? You don't need no birth certificates, fingerprints, social security number, none of that. They didn't have none of that. But anyway, they want to take the children. They don't want, as soon as the baby is born here, they want to try to get it and try to do different things to it and infect it and all. Excuse me. But after the time, Aram, fearing he should be discovered, should be found, and by falling under the king's displeasure, both he and his child should die. All right, and so he should make the promise of the Most High of none effect. He determined rather to entrust the safety and care of the child to the Most High. The safety and care of the child to the Most High. And what does that look like today? That looks like no vaccines and all these other drugs, pharmacy, when the child comes out. Alright? You don't need none of that. They don't even know that your child, was born. Right? Because Satan is looking for that child, But anyway, let me go back. It says, and so he should make the, let me go back. But after that time, Aram, fearing he should be discovered, they found out, and by falling under the king's displeasure, both he and his child should die. And so he should make the promise of the Most High of none effect. He determined rather to entrust, to trust the safety and care of the child to the Most High, the living God, the living power, Yah, the Most High, Ahaya, than to depend on his own concealment of him, hiding of him, which he looked upon as a thing uncertain. He was unsure, and whereby both the child so privately to be nourished and himself should be in an imminent danger. But he believed that the Most High would some way for certain procure the safety of the child in order to secure the truth of his own predictions. That's correct. When they had so determined that when they made that decision, they made an ark of bulrushes after the weight of a cradle and of a bigness sufficient for an infant to be laid in. This is what they put Moshe in. Without being straightened, they then daubed it over with slime, which would naturally keep out the water from entering between the bulrushes, and put the infant into it, and setting it afloat upon the river, they left its preservation to God. They left its um, care to the Most High, and that's what we have to do. Uh, Leave the preservation and safety and trust in the Most High to take care of the baby when it's born, right? You might not have all the things that you need and all the stuff, blankets and all these other things and instruments and all this stuff when they come out. You might not be in a hospital. You might be in the wilderness having a baby, right? And you don't have all these different things. And some people, oh, you don't have this, don't have it at home, don't do that natural birth, don't do it in the water, don't do. But they want to trust science and they want to trust man. But when you leave the preservation and the care of the Most High hand, He gonna take care of it. He gonna preserve it alive. Like when Elijah raised that woman's baby up, you know, she didn't know what to do. She like, I finally have my son, my baby, and he died, and she didn't know what she could do. And the only thing you could do is pray to the Most High. Elijah said, man, what's going on? You gonna have this lady tripping on me? And he got over the baby 3 times and raised the baby up. Resurrected the young man. Right? And then she said that he's truly a prophet. Right? Okay, so let's get back to it. They pitched it with slime, which would naturally keep out the water from entering between the bulrushes, and put the infant, the baby, into it, and setting it afloat upon the river. They left its preservation to God. They put it in the Most High's hand. So the river received the child and carried him along. But Miriam, the child's sister, passed along upon the bank over against him, as her mother had told her, to see whether the ark would be carried. The ark was carrying. It wasn't sinking. It was floating. Where the Most High demonstrated that human wisdom was nothing, but that the Supreme Being is able to do whatsoever He pleases. Alright? That those who, in order to their own security, condemned others to destruction. So I got to read that again. But Miriam, Moses' sister, the child's sister, passed along upon the bank over against him, as her mother had told her to do, to see whether the ark would be carried. Where God demonstrated that human wisdom was nothing, but that the Supreme Being, which is the Most High Elohim, the highest, the Lord of Spirits, is able to do whatsoever He pleases. The one that be who He be. That those who, in order to their own security, condemn others to destruction and use great endeavors about it, fail of their purpose, their plan, but that others are in a surprising manner preserved, saved, and obtain a prosperous condition, almost from the very midst of their calamities, their disasters. Those, I mean, whose dangers arise by the appointment of the Most High, and indeed such a providence, a care was exercised in the case of this child, as showed the power of the Most High. Alright. And so that shows the power of the Most High. Alright. And I think that's all I'm going to read on that. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll read this too. It says, Thermithis was the king's daughter. She was now diverting herself by the banks of the river, and seeing a cradle carried along by the current, she sent some that could swim, and told them, Bring that cradle to her. When those that were sent on this errand came to her with the cradle, she saw the little child, Moshe. She was greatly in love with it on account of its largeness and beauty. For the Most High had taken such great care in the formation of Moses that he caused him to be thought worthy of bringing up, drawn out, and providing for, by all those that had taken the most fatal resolutions on account of the dread of his nativity, him being born. See what the Most High can do for those that were appointed to die by the government, even parents, through abortion. Look how he took care of Moses. It says, on account of the dread of, it says, by all those that had taken the most fatal resolution. They had taken the most wicked, fatal, dangerous resolutions. And what was their resolution? To kill the child. On account of the dread of his nativity, on account of him being born. See, for the destruction of the rest of the Hebrew nation. And Thermithis did them bring her a woman that might afford her breast to the child. Still would not the child allow of her breast, but turned away from it. He didn't want no Egyptian milk, and did the like to many other women. Now Miriam was by when this happened, and not to appear to be there on purpose, but only as staying to see the child, to see her baby. And she said, It is in vain that you, O queen, callest for these women for the nourishing of the child, who are no way of kin to it, because they're Hamites. But still, if you will order one of the Hebrew women to be brought, perhaps it may allow the breast of one of its own nation. Now, since she seemed to speak well, Thermithis told her find such a one, and to bring one of those Hebrew women that gave suck. So when she had such authority given her, she came back and brought the mother, who was known to nobody there, was revealed to nobody there, and now the child gladly admitted, he gladly accepts the breast, and seemed to stick close to it. See, we're supposed to be breastfeeding our babies. And so it was that at the queen's desire, the nursing of the child was entirely entrusted to the mother. It goes around full circle. The Most High is great. And so that's it. That's all I have for this. It was just a quick reading. Pray that it's a blessing. All right. Shalom.